From time to time, most of us need a new stimulus, fresh ideas, or a new perspective to spark creativity or innovation, or simply to clear the mind to develop a new strategic vision. At Mind Resources, we specialise in brain food, learning resources that provide a stimulus to creativity, innovation, skill enhancement, and behavioural change. Thank you for having chosen one of our programs. I hope you enjoy it.
Accountability. Does that word have you reaching for the aspirin? I thought so. It's one of those words that makes us cringe. That's probably because we have so many negative ideas about what accountability really is.
I cannot believe my eyes.
One definition of accountability is blame. Pure and simple.
In all my years at this job, this is the worst screw-up I've ever seen. Now, what I want to know is, who's accountable for this mess?
Hey, good news on that new terminal my department designed. I'm going to be in Best in Class magazine next month, showing it off.
By another definition, I'm accountable when things turn out well. But when they don't, well, that's somebody else's fault.
By the way, have you gotten to the bottom of the cancel order nightmare in your department?
Oh, yeah. Turns out Brooke is accountable for letting the whole team down on that one.
It's a real shame. She caused a lot of unhappy customers, not to mention canceled orders.
As everyone well knows, each member of our staff needs to be accountable for providing quality, affordable care for the community.
Sometimes people use accountability when what they're really talking about is paperwork.
That's why I'm proud to be able to introduce you to our new facility-wide accountability and cost containment program.
Blame, fault, and red tape. Any of those definitions of accountability sound familiar to you? I thought so. Well, good news. Today, we're not going to be talking about any of those definitions. In this program, we're going to learn some powerful new definitions of accountability, what it's all about, and how it really works. And if, like me, you've always felt that accountability was just a roundabout way to control people, I've got some really good news. The kind of accountability we're going to talk about will give you control over your own actions and your own success. You'll be more effective and create more positive relationships with your boss and coworkers. And if you're a manager or supervisor, you'll be able to build a more effective team where people can learn and develop together. It's accountability that works for everyone. Let's get started. 3 words: responsibility, empowerment, and accountability. Now, as we're going to see later, all 3 of these words are closely connected. But let's take a look at them one at a time. First is responsibility. Now, as you probably already know, responsibility involves 2 things: something that needs to get done and someone who's willing to do it.
That's the morning shift, so I think we're covered there. Oh yeah, there's a problem I need your help with. The F6 work teams are constantly running low on parts, and someone needs to find out what's going on. Aaron, how about it?
I guess so, Carl.
Good. Okay, then, I guess that's it. See you guys later.
Okay, there's some sort of task there somewhere, and I think Aaron's going to do it. But would you be surprised if Aaron wasn't successful in completing the assignment? I wouldn't either. And do you know why? Because there was no clear agreement between Carl and Aaron about what was to be done. A clear agreement involves 4 things: establishing what the task will be, identifying who owns the task, agreeing on what results you want, and when it is to be completed. Ideally, the agreement should be written down. Now, here comes one of those definitions I was telling you about. So if you're taking notes, you want to write this down. Responsibility is a before-the-fact mindset of ownership for a task or job. Responsibility isn't really something we do. It's a way of thinking. It means taking ownership of a project or task before you know how it's going to turn out. Now, let's see how different things look when Carl and Aaron use this definition of responsibility and set up a clear agreement.
Okay, that's the morning shift, so I think we're covered there. Oh yeah, there's a problem that I need your help with. The F6 work teams are constantly running low on parts, especially during peak production time, and we're spending so much time chasing down parts.
That's better. Carl's explaining why solving the problem is important. He's also giving everyone the big picture. This will help motivate his team to want to take responsibility.
So you need someone to be responsible for looking into the problem.
Right, and also making some recommendations for fixing it.
Great. They're both taking responsibility for clarifying what kind of results the team needs. But who's going to take ownership?
Aaron, how about it?
Well, we have had part shortages as long as I've been here, and I know it's a big problem for the team, but I'm not really sure if there is a workable solution for this. And even if there is, whether I'm the guy who can come up with it.
I understand, and I don't know either. I just know that it's costing us time, and money, and we just can't ignore it.
Notice that Carl isn't getting drawn into whether or not Aaron will solve the problem. For now, he's just focusing on the task itself and whether Aaron is willing to accept ownership for making some recommendations.
But right now, I just need to know whether you're willing to take this on. Someone's got to own it.
Yeah, I guess I can do that. I'll own it.
Great. By when can you be responsible for analyzing the problem and getting some recommendations to the team in writing?
Why don't we say Wednesday of next week, 5 o'clock?
Terrific. We'll count on you then. Thanks for owning it.
Okay, for responsibility to really work, there has to be upfront ownership and a clear agreement. Carl and Aaron were much better this time. They established the task, analyzed the parts problem, and Aaron agreed to be the owner of the task. The result was identified as a written report with recommended solutions, and a by-when was specified, by next Wednesday at 5 o'clock. And notice that Aaron took responsibility for the task before he knew how it was going to turn out. That's what we call a responsibility mindset. Oh, one last thing about responsibility. It is just as important to know who's doing what when we're in a group. Think about a typical meeting. You know, the kind that stretch on for hours, but somehow nothing productive ever really gets done? There's a reason why that happens, and it has to do with something we'll call the we syndrome.
Okay, I am pleased to tell you that the company is going ahead with that on-demand product information fax line, and they've given us the green light to design and implement it.
Well, we shouldn't just restrict the information to fax. We should have it available on the web, too.
We can't overlook cell phone displays and pagers as well.
We need to sit down with the wireless companies.
We could automatically email product updates to our registered users.
We should look into online training.
We have to hire a top-flight designer. We could do online courses.
We need to upgrade our computer system.
And we need to establish a protocol.
We need a consistent graphic design.
We need to get the graphics department. We could,
You see what I mean? We need to do this. We ought to do that. The we syndrome. But let me ask you, what's the likelihood of anyone actually carrying out any of these ideas? Slim to none, because none of these ideas has an owner. The fact is, we can't do anything. Tasks only have a chance of getting accomplished when an individual, is willing to take personal responsibility and ownership. Simply put, a we unowned is a we undone.
We could automatically email product updates to our registered user.
We need a whole new color scheme for our catalog.
Every time you or your team identifies something that we need to do, It's critical to clearly establish an owner and a clear agreement.
Excuse me, but Ralph, are you volunteering to do the actual research on implementing the email product updates?
Me? Well, no, I was just thinking we should all look into it.
Why? Because these are all really good ideas. But unless somebody takes ownership of some of these ideas, we are going to be sitting here again next week and nothing will have been done.
Well, I could talk to Frank over in IT and see about what it would take to add a new section to our website. I can own that.
That's great, Wendy. Now, do you think you can report on what you've learned by our meeting next week, including cost and time frame of creating the new section?
Sure. I can commit to that.
Good.
I can make preliminary contact with the wireless companies to see how we could work with them on this.
This is terrific.
Whether in groups or as individuals, we can take responsibility by taking full ownership of projects up front, making a clear agreement and writing it down, identifying the benefits of completing the task and staying focused on them, and avoiding the we syndrome by making sure all tasks have an owner. Now, if responsibility means taking upfront ownership of a task, then the next step is for the owner to take action to complete the task. The way to do that is through empowerment, sometimes called self-empowerment. So I'll let you in on a little secret. There really isn't any other kind.
Carmen, I was just going over our agreements from our team meeting, looking into why some of the patients are getting infections at their IV site. That was yours, right?
Yeah.
Let's do it at the end of the week. How's it going?
Oh, yeah, Nancy. Well, I checked. But, you know, it'd take going through med records for patients that have already been discharged, and they've already been filed away in the records room.
Uh-oh. It appears as if Carmen agreed to take ownership for the task, but I'm not sure she's fully empowered herself to complete the task.
You did agree to look into this.
Yeah, but, well, isn't that what we have an infectious control specialist for?
Diane's responsible for acting on trends once we identify them, sure, but Carmen, patient safety and well-being isn't just a department. We're all empowered when it's warranted.
Look, Nancy, I'm as committed to patient safety as anyone. I just really don't feel I have the authority to just go rooting around in the records room. Do I?
Actually, the snag Carmen has hit is very common. She's confusing empowerment with authority. But the two things are worlds apart. You see, authority can be given to us by someone else, but only we can empower ourselves. Carmen probably doesn't have the authority to look at patient records, but she could still empower herself to find out who does. Empowerment is taking personal action in order to ensure an agreed-upon result. This is where the owner of a task goes to work, deciding on the individual steps that need to be taken, asking others for assistance if necessary, overcoming barriers, and staying on track. When we truly empower ourselves, we'll do whatever it takes, within reason and the rules of the organization, to get the job done, even if it means we have to step out of our comfort zone a little.
Carmen, I've thought about what you said about not having the authority to check into the records room.
Yeah, I mean, that would have to be Charlotte, right? She's the floor supervisor.
Carmen, when you made the agreement and accepted the responsibility for looking into the IV problem, you were in effect agreeing to move the task forward in spite of all obstacles.
Good. Nancy's helping Carmen to see that she didn't need to stop all progress on her task just because Carmen hit a barrier about her authority level.
You're right. I could have checked with you, or Charlotte, I suppose.
As floor supervisor, Charlotte would be the one to know for sure.
I suppose we could check with Charlotte right now.
By owning the task she agreed to and empowering herself to seek clarification, Carmen's on track to create a successful result for herself, her team, and her patients. Now, we've learned about responsibility before the fact, and then about empowering ourselves to take action. What's left? The last stage, which is accountability. Accountability is a personal willingness after the fact to answer for the results of your behaviors and actions, again, regardless of how things turn out. The accountability stage is where you look back at your clear agreement. Did you complete each step? If your results were successful, celebrate your achievement. If not, avoid placing blame. Instead, take responsibility for fixing the problem and learn from your experience so you can do it better the next time. If we own a task at the beginning and empower ourselves to move it forward, then it's just as important that we're willing to own our results after the task has come to completion. Now, when things go right, that's pretty easy to do. But when the results don't turn out the way we want, we're sometimes inclined to start placing blame anywhere but on us.
We're already a week into initial release of the accounting upgrade, and you're telling me there's a serious problem with the program your team developed?
It could cost us a couple $100,000 in lost shipments.
Really? Now, you had overall responsibility for that project.
Yes, unfortunately.
And there weren't any particular problems during programming.
Now, as Tony's manager, Charlene is reminding Tony of his agreement to be responsible for the task, and that he had empowered himself to complete it. So far, so good.
I know you don't like to hear excuses, but the blame for this one has to go to quality control.
Uh-oh. There's that blame word. Clearly, Tony isn't being accountable for his results.
Wait a minute, Tony. We were both clear that you'd be accountable for the bug-free delivery of that software program.
It was a simple coding error. They should have caught it.
Did you notice? Tony just introduced the word should into the discussion. Now, watch what happens.
And I should have had a few more programmers assigned to this one.
Well, you should have let me know if this project was under-resourced. Most of all, you should have stayed on top of QC.
I shouldn't be blamed for their mess-ups.
You should have let me know there was a problem.
Well, you should have asked.
You should have stayed. Well, you should have let me know.
When somebody introduces should into the discussion, pretty soon the shoulds are flying everywhere. And before you know it, accountability is dead. Why? Because should is past tense, and it's all about blame. If we're committed to each other's success, then we can't live in the past or in the world of blame. I know, you're wondering if accountability isn't about blame or what we should do or ought to do. Then what is it about? The answer comes back to clear agreements. Remember those? You see, clear agreements not only figure into the responsibility and empowerment stages, they have a role during all three stages of a task. In fact, clear agreements are really the glue that holds accountability together. Specifically, how do clear agreements figure into the accountability stage? It works like this. Being accountable is about each of us owning the results we produce, whether good or bad. What happens when tasks don't turn out so well? Then we just go back to our original agreement. That way, resolving problems isn't about he said, she said, and the whole blame thing. It's about what we agreed to do in the beginning and the results we agreed to be accountable for.
I shouldn't be blamed for their mess-ups.
You should have let me know there was a problem.
Well, you should have asked.
So, when you hear shoulds being tossed about, don't join in. Instead, focus the discussion away from the past and away from blame and back to what your agreement was in the first place.
I shouldn't be blamed for their mess-ups.
Hold on.
What?
Look. We've just gone 3 rounds on what you and I should have done.
Look, if you're saying that I'm wrong...
You're not wrong. It's just that talking about what we didn't do isn't going to help us figure out what we need to do now.
All right, I guess. And what do you mean?
We both agreed you'd be accountable for the bug-free delivery of that software program, right?
Right.
It's important that we answer for our results, Tony. But what really matters is...
What really matters is that the problem is resolved, right?
And the only way that's going to happen is for someone to take responsibility and be accountable for it.
Someone like... Okay, so what I get is if I'm going to be accountable for this program, then I've got to get busy figuring out how to fix this problem.
Good. And we are both responsible for learning from this and finding ways to keep it from happening on future programs.
Yeah, I guess.
Notice that by bypassing blame, Charlene and Tony are now focused back on their mutual accountability and a successful result. Now that we've come full circle, I'll bet you're asking, what's next? Actually, now we've come to the best part of accountability. Because when we really come to own our results, good or bad, that's when we start learning those hard lessons about ourselves, about our abilities, as well as our shortcomings. This is where we get to look at our results, so we can do things even better the next time. You see, once we've reached the accountability stage, we will probably find that some of the things we did during the task were effective, but that some of the things we did, well, they weren't so effective. Now, by reviewing your actions, you can learn from your experience, so that the next time you take responsibility for a task, you only keep those actions and behaviors that were effective. And chances are, you won't make the same mistakes again.
So, I was able to stop shipments of the flawed program, replace them with an earlier bug-free version.
Okay, good. That's great.
Whether we're employees, managers, or supervisors, we are all responsible for owning our results, learning from them, and replacing ineffective actions and behaviors with effective ones.
That's great. You know, by the way, I'm recommending you to oversee the next version of the program. You up for it?
But, I mean, you really want me in charge of the next version after what happened on the last one?
You're never going to make a mistake like that again. Besides, you've just been through a fairly expensive training program.
Tell me about it.
When we began, I promised to share with you a kind of accountability that would give you control over your work life. I hope I fulfilled that promise. But just as no one else can empower us, no one can make us accountable either. Each of us actually has a choice: to feel controlled by others and by outside circumstances, or to seize control of our own work lives by accepting accountability for our own actions and results. The choice is ours. To be responsible, say, "I own it," and mean it. Make a clear agreement and write it down. Identify the benefits of completing a task and avoid the we syndrome by making sure all tasks have an owner. The empowerment stage includes: decide on the individual steps that need to be taken, ask others for assistance if necessary, overcome barriers, and stay on track. Accountability means reviewing whether or not you completed each step of your agreement. If results are good, celebrate your achievement. If not, avoid placing blame. Be responsible for fixing the problem and learn from your experience so you'll do it better the next time. By being more accountable, people will see that you're the kind of person who gets things done, and they'll know they can count on you.